In this presentation, you will learn about the following topics related to the National Flood Insurance Program: the history of natural disasters that led to early flood control efforts in the United States, and the most significant flood control program in the country today, the National Flood Insurance Program, or NFIP, and the goals and objectives of the NFIP. These key terms and acronyms will be used during this presentation. You can find the terms and their definitions at the web address on screen. In 1927, after months of heavy rain in the northern and central plains, the Mississippi River left its banks and flooded approximately 27,000 square miles. It was an epic disaster. 10 states, including Iowa, were inundated with water up to 30 feet deep in many locations. 14% of the land area of Arkansas was underwater, and the river expanded to a width of 60 miles below Memphis, Tennessee. The flood caused more than $400 million in damages and killed 246 people in 7 states. Up to that time, government had little involvement in flood control. After the Great Mississippi River flood, however, Congress passed the Flood Control Act of 1928. The act charged the Army Corps of Engineers with keeping the waters of the great rivers away from the people by undertaking massive flood control projects, such as levees, dams, channeling, and diversion floodways. During the next 40 years, Congress passed numerous flood control acts, often in response to flood disasters that occurred somewhere in the United States. The emphasis remained on large-scale structural projects designed to gain control of the nation's rivers. By the late 1960s, however, Congress became concerned with the increasing costs of flood relief and the general failure of structural flood control projects to reduce flood losses. A major reason for this failure was continued development of homes and businesses in floodplains. With the realization that flood protection programs should not only include structural measures, but also promote the use of policy tools to reduce development in the floodplain, in 1968 Congress ushered in the most significant flood program in the country today. That program is the National Flood Insurance Program. The passage of the National Flood Insurance Act in 1968 marked a significant shift toward a comprehensive approach to reducing flood losses. The act created the National Flood Insurance Program, or NFIP, which was designed to achieve 4 goals: to emphasize less costly non-structural flood control measures over structural measures such as dams and levees, to reduce federal disaster costs by shifting the burden from all taxpayers to floodplain occupants, to provide landowners with affordable flood insurance coverage not generally available in the private market, and to encourage communities to take an active role in floodplain management to reduce future flood-related losses. This primarily is accomplished through locally adopted regulations that are designed to reduce the likelihood of flood damage to buildings constructed according to the regulations, prevent new developments from increasing the potential for flood damage to existing properties, and ensure that the natural beneficial functions of floodplains are maintained or restored. The NFIP is based on a mutual agreement among local, state, and federal governments. If a community adopts and enforces regulations that meet minimum federal and state standards for development in its floodplain areas, then federally guaranteed flood insurance is made available to property owners in that community. Thus, there are 3 interconnected components that are key to the success of the NFIP: accurate floodplain mapping, effective enforcement of floodplain regulations, and federally backed flood insurance. Accurate mapping is the driving force behind sound floodplain management. The maps provide the foundation for communities to enforce their regulations and for rating insurance. The availability of federally backed flood insurance is based on communities participating in the National Flood Insurance Program. A person can purchase flood insurance for any home or business located anywhere within a community that is participating in the program. Premiums for flood insurance vary largely due to a structure's flood risk. That level of risk is analyzed based on flood maps that are created by FEMA. This video series will address each of these components: mapping, regulation, and insurance, and how they work together in greater detail. Today, you have learned about the history of natural disasters that led to early flood control efforts in the United States and how these events formed the basis of our modern-day system for flood management, insurance, and mapping, the National Flood Insurance Program.